Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private.
Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. My name is Alexis and I am a former alcoholic and addict, now in recovery. The Recovery Cast is a podcast created by people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction for people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. This podcast is meant as a support tool for those in recovery, and everyone who participates in the podcast is in an active recovery program. We are not affiliated with any one recovery methodology and will focus on a variety of different types of recovery, including 12-step recovery, otherwise known as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Dharma Recovery, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, and more. And a quick disclaimer, this podcast is intended to be informative. A podcast alone cannot support your sobriety journey and recovery, so we suggest it only as one component of a daily recovery routine. For more information on what recovery is, go to www.rehab.melbourne. Almost lost it there.
You almost did. Well done. Awesome.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Oliver. I'm the slightly less important member of this podcast. Thank you for reading that, Alexis. We're going to do a reading on December the 9th from the JFT, which is entitled Listening. Something I seldom do. It goes like this. This ability to listen is a gift and grows as we grow spiritually. Life takes on a new meaning when we open ourselves to this gift. Basic text 107. Have you ever watched two small children carry on a conversation? One will be talking about purple dragons while the other carries on about the discomfort caused by having sand in one's shoes. We sometimes encounter the same communication problems as we learn to listen to others. We may struggle through meetings, trying desperately to hear the person sharing while our minds are busy planning what we will say when it's our turn to speak. In conversation, we may suddenly realise that our answers have nothing to do with the questions we're being asked. They are instead speeches prepared while in the grip of our self-obsession. Learning how to really listen, is a difficult task, but one that's not beyond our reach. We might begin by acknowledging in our replies what our conversational partner is saying. We might ask if there is anything we can do to help when someone expresses a problem. With a little practice, we can find greater freedom from self-obsession and closer contact with the people in our lives. Just for today, I will quiet my own thoughts and listen to what someone else is saying. Well, yeah, good. I can't do that yet. Sorry. How about you? What do you reckon?
No, man. Look, I learned about active listening when I was doing dialectical behaviour therapy, and I'm still, when I'm in the grip of self-obsession, there's just nothing at all. I do attempt to practice it to the best of my ability, but I don't often get really anywhere with it. You know, I do the whole, I'm waiting to have a response, I'm planning my response, I'm actually like thinking about how they're going to respond to my response to what they're saying, like literally not taking anything on board because it's all about me, right? Like, yeah. I don't know what anyone else thinks, but it's definitely all about me. How can I turn this conversation back into something about me, you know?
Yeah, me too. And in meetings as well, when other people are sharing, I'm just sitting there thinking, like first part of my wonderful speech, my share is going to be this, and then I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about this, and finish up with this, and try and make it powerful, and try and make it funny, talk about those funny things. And it's actually quite difficult to live with this constant self-obsession, but it's been 4 years and 2 months nearly for me, and I'm still the same like that. I'm still like that, you know, and I've got this horrendous underdiagnosed ADHD that stayed with me through to my adulthood, where I kind of, how do I explain this? Conversations and everything that I have is all responses, and I try and bring things back into something that's about me and my experiences. So it's almost like whatever the other person's saying doesn't even matter. And it's really difficult. And that's actually something I've struggled with my whole life is listening, which is really strange because I'm a musician and we're supposed to be listening to what other people are playing in the band and things like that, and listening to music to try and, but it's this weird thing. Apparently we're supposed to get better at it as recovery goes on.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, well, geez, I don't think I have.
No?
And yeah, no, I haven't.
No?
I haven't. I mean, I think I was insane when I went into early recovery, and when I got clean, I was insane in that regard, that I was completely had no grounding and no sort of like no bearing on the present moment at all. It was all just inside my own head, and that real rawness of early recovery, and maybe that's gone away now, but now it's still, the personality traits that I used to have are still there. So
yeah, I hear what you're saying. For me in early recovery, when I came in and I started going to meetings, I was still like pretty cooked, and I'd be sitting there and people would be sharing their story, and like I would just be like, shut up. I don't
it's my turn to share now.
Yeah. Are they going to ask me to share? Like, why haven't they asked me to share? Starting to get a resentment on the chairperson, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And something I've learned now as I'm going along, like I've gotten better at not interrupting people. Like I could be really bad at interrupting people because,
how's that going for you?
Exactly. It's gotten better.
Yeah.
It's gotten better because I've started to respect people, and like their input. And, I've learned now, like, especially if somebody's interrupted in a conversation, to kind of like bring the conversation back to what they were saying and allow that person to have that space to say that, like it makes them feel included and it's just respectful. So
is that even addiction related growth though? Because I think people in every walk of life can probably benefit from that, from listening a little bit more. And we live these lives that are plugged into phones and screens and technology. There's a lot of self-obsession going on. There's a lot of narcissism going on. I mean, I'd make a point of not using TikTok, but Instagram is really difficult because I constantly want to share about me, and there's actually less. There's less interest in what other people are doing on that platform. It's more just look at me,
Yeah, I can relate to that.
I'm clean and I'm kicking goals, and and I actually don't care. I'm sit in a meeting and Sharon, nobody wants to hear about your difficult weekend or the fact that your cat's run away. Let's talk about how I've been going. And it's that's not necessarily an addiction thing. I think that's generally that's actually a general population thing. But I think I don't know. Gee, for me, when I got when I started using, I was probably 15, and I never developed on a really social level. And also I have this horrendous ADHD. People are my weakness, like I can't communicate very well, which is quite stupid, the fact that I'm making this podcast because I'm supposed to be communicating, but it's been difficult. And when I got clean, I was still 15 in a way, and I'm probably about 19 now in that case.
I hate that notion, like the idea that like we are stalled and we've stopped where we were when we first started using. It's like something that I'm so like unwilling to accept. Like, no, I am not still 15 years old. I'm a 31-year-old woman. Like when really emotionally.
It's an emotional thing.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I am probably about 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And that, that doesn't, it's not to say that I didn't develop in other areas.
No, but it's like that emotional like standstill.
Yeah.
Like, definitely.
Yeah. I think I firmly actually believe that. And you know what? Whatever, mate, that means that I'll be super youthful when I'm 60. It'll be like I'm 45 or something,
Yeah.
So, anyway, what ways does that, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
How does that manifest for you, that level of emotional immaturity?
Good question. For me, it manifests in my inability to like practice like proper acceptance of like myself and especially like of other people as well, because obviously how we treat ourselves is how we treat other people. Definitely play on the inability to actively listen. I do try to practice that. Like I've become more consciously aware of it. And I want people to feel included as well, you know, like in a conversation. So, also in my emotional dysregulation. Nothing really to do with this reading or what we're talking about, but that's just how it's manifested for me mostly. Like inability to like just allow things to be okay. I like have that like need for control, and then the emotional dysregulation.
I'm literally a toddler at sometimes when it comes to things that I can't control, as everybody knows in this podcast. Oliver's a control freak. Oliver, when something goes in a way that Oliver doesn't like, Oliver will freak out, get resentful, probably get a little bit depressed, and just generally feel ill at ease.
And you know, that's fear-based though.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's okay to feel that way. It's about practicing awareness around it as well, which is what you're doing.
I am aware. It's the coping mechanisms that I've developed in recovery. I couldn't develop those coping mechanisms in active addiction because I had no idea and no way of actually learning from them. I used to behave in a way I used to go and use. Yeah. And today I have to learn new ways to do it. And for the listeners, you know, like that's what we do in recovery, I think, you know. We learn how to live in a new way, as it says in the literature. We find a new way to live, and all of those old behaviours start to change. I'm sorry, but it's been, you know, over 4 years, and I'm still getting there, and it's a slow process. But I think those years of development that I missed out on that emotional and social level, they start to happen slowly, you know.
Something that you know, has been really crucial for me is like learning through other people in recovery, like learning how to be a human being just through my interactions with the support that I've gotten from and the friendships that I've made whilst having an active recovery program. That's something that I'm grateful for, you know, because prior to this, like I was mostly self-isolating in my using. I much preferred to be alone. I wanted to use alone. I didn't want really anyone close to me, anyone that I would potentially have to share my drugs with or have to like let in, you know, to my little tiny fragmented world. And so I didn't really have any healthy interactions with people, like whatsoever, you know, like I had like especially the short fuse that you have when you're using as well. Like I just didn't have tolerance for people, and I still often don't have tolerance for people, but it's just not in such an abrasive or aggressive way these days. It's worked out to be a lot healthier and something that I can learn from. And that's really crucial. The relationship I have with my, you know, the people that I've met through my recovery have really been fundamental to my growth in how I interact with human beings. I'm still absolutely terrified to go get a job. Like in the normal world, I'm so like terrified of interacting with normal people on like a human level.
That's interesting. It's funny that you have that experience, because I think, here we go, I'm going to talk about me now. This is my listening house. Oh my God.
Do it.
Now I'm hyper aware of my like, I'm so socially backward. Jesus. For me, my world has gotten tiny in recovery. You know, I feel like I'm the opposite actually, in that I have this very small world, and maybe it's a way of making myself feel safe and in control. Because in the past, I wasn't able to control things and I wasn't able to interact with people, you know, or maybe when I was using, so I was able to use it as like a social lubricant. And also I was always in the pursuit of drugs. So when there wasn't any at home, I'd go out, I'd go clubbing and I'd go to friends' houses and stuff. And now it's like, that's not an option. So I'm going to stay home and be a hermit in a way. Which is, this is where I just admit that my life is small and sad.
I don't think it's small and sad.
Well,
you know, you're in a much better place.
In a sarcastic way.
Okay, the eternal sad boy coming out there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll we'll talk some more about this and talk some more nonsense as well.
You're listening to the Recovery Cast by Hills and Rangers Private. Now playing daily on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. For more shows, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.
You're on the Recovery Cast with Alexis and Oliver, and maybe we should address the elephant in the room, which is the new tone and the new sort of direction that we're going in. We're trying to be less boring. We're trying to be a little bit more chaotic. And
Yeah, you guys hate us.
I don't know if they hate us. Maybe is recovery boring? No. I mean, I'm not wandering the streets, trying to get drugs anymore. But life is. I get to do amazing stuff. There's not as much chaos, but there's more exciting stuff. And I think we're going to have to try and convey that. We're trying to be a bit more exciting. The word has been passed down just before you start talking, Alexis. The word has been passed down that we're allowed to swear on the Recovery Cast. So I'm just going to be the first person to swear on the Recovery Cast. Fuck. Thank you. That'll be all. So yeah, I don't know. What were we talking about?
Listening. And you know what? The listeners may have said that we were boring as fuck, but that's okay because we'll listen to you guys and we're going to adapt that. And this is learning for us as well. This is my first time ever speaking into an actual microphone and I sound weird as hell in my ears.
Yeah, you get that. You hear what you really sound like.
Is this what I really sound like?
Yeah.
Weird.
I know,
man.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I love the sound of my own voice, so it's totally natural for me, but listening. Let's not talk about. I don't care about that. I said. Is recovery boring?
Is it boring?
Is it boring?
You know what? Straight up, it's not that it's boring, but it's I've been so used to chaos for so long that I've had to adapt to this more leveled out, functional way of life. And if I allow my thinking to be this is boring, what am I even here for? That's just a relapse waiting to happen, you know? Yeah. And I flat out refuse to end up amongst that world yet again because a lot of people they don't come back, and if they do, they're just so much worse off.
No,
and
they don't. Yeah.
It's a terrifying concept, and I have to have a healthy fear of that. I have to actively listen to the members who have had that experience as well. Because you can learn from them, and you can hear their journey and their story, and you can actually apply it to your own. So
there's a lot of experience out there, and look, a huge amount of people relapse, a huge amount of people don't make it, and I'm hell-bent on not being one of those statistics. What is it about me that I haven't relapsed since I've come into recovery through a 12-step program, and I'm a rare gem in no ways except that one. That's the only way that I'm actually unique. Everything else in my life is pretty I've never been a really high achiever at anything except in the fact that I'm in recovery and I've stayed in recovery. And is it boring? No. Look, I think in fact, maybe it's boring in some ways for me. I think, the lack of chaos and the lack of that sort of wild stuff that I used to do, maybe it's different in that way, but I've done things that I never thought would be possible, part of, some of which is doing this podcast, some of which is being able to help other people with addiction, to have people say, I'm clean because of you, or I've been sober for this long because of you, Oliver. It's different. It's different. And where I used to be, which is sitting in a laneway, using non-stop by myself, drink driving everywhere, having a car with so many dents and broken windows and not being able to pay the rent and all that stuff. Now it's like, well, you know, I've got 2 cars, they're nice. I can pay rent. I pay rent in advance, and there's so much more stability. So it's a trade-off, and I think honestly, you know, I wanted to die. You know, that's the ultimate thing is in my active addiction. Like what you know, what's the, I don't know, what was it like for you, Alexis?
For me, in like what, early recovery?
Yeah, like active addiction versus what it's like now, you know.
Okay.
Was it exciting?
No,
Yeah.
because I didn't start using for excitement. I didn't start using because I wanted to party and I just couldn't stop partying. I started using because I was just in so much pain. Like I was in so much pain. A lifetime of trauma from my earliest years, abusive upbringing, you know, core family members who were addicts and alcoholics. And it wasn't, you know, I just wanted everything to stop inside of me. I wasn't trying to have a good time. And that's where my addiction started.
But that's
you know?
that's
Like,
exciting for me. That
really?
feel that
Oh God, I was just trying not to like implode or explode, and it was just, and that was the only coping mechanism that I found was drugs. Okay, drugs make everything quiet. Drugs make everything stop. Drugs make me feel calm and competent, and like I can cope with everything that's spilling out of me. You know, and like I got into this rhythm where I was like, if I stop using, I'm not going to be okay. And I became terrified of that, and it became this cycle, you know, like this. Now, my world was very small because I literally would work at night, make a shit ton of money, and then I would go see my dealer as soon as my shift finished, early hours of the morning. I would get on, stay at his for a couple of hours, talk to him for a couple of hours, and then I would go home and I would just I would like have all these stupid little freaking things that I would do around my house, like paint my nails like freaking 4,000 times because I can't sit still enough for them to dry. All right. Spend 6 hours doing my makeup. And then, you know, then I'd go back to work again. And like I did that every fucking day. I did that every day, you know, and that was the only way I felt like I could cope. I was so terrified of slowing down. I was so terrified of stopping. I actually shared this meme on Instagram recently, and it's like, I'm 99% sure that my 2 love languages are physical touch and chaos. I was just like, yes. Like, and I have to like I can't be in love with the chaos anymore. I can't be in love with the drama because it doesn't serve any purpose. It doesn't do me any good, and it just leads me down a path to self-destruction. So, you know, like for me, I like even when I went out partying, I still just wanted to go home and use. I would be the girl in the toilets, like trying to like blow fucking, you know, I probably shouldn't say that, but you know, trying to blow smoke up into the vent and, you know, do like always like wanting to get that next hit, like just not wanting to be on the dance floor, not wanting to be around people, just like, when are we going to use again? When are we going to use again? When are we going to use again? You know, and that's been,
mine too, you know, I'd steal people's drugs, then go home and use them.
Yeah.
You know?
I've done things like that too.
Yeah. And my, as I said, I wanted to be alone as well. And I think there was this constant juggling of wanting to be alone and to use, and then wanting to be okay and not be like that. And it was this big fight inside of me all the time. It was like I was ready to stop from very early on, but I just couldn't. And that sums up addiction for me, is wanting to stop but not being able to, despite no matter how much I tried. It's such a long time ago for me, but it's still absolutely, it feels like it was yesterday, and I can feel myself being a bit triggered right now. That, well, I'm okay, but like, and obviously it's not going to happen, but you know, that I was the happiest when I'd just gotten home and I'd been to the dealer and I had, you know, heaps of stuff to use, and I just wanted to sit in the garage and watch YouTube and use and like have
just
no responsibility.
Away. Just fade away.
It's difficult. But
it's such a sad place to be in as well, you know, and like it makes my heart hurt thinking, you know, hearing you say that, like you feel like a bit triggered by that, because it's just such a sad place to sit in.
As much as I hate it, I actually loved it too.
Yeah, I feel that.
You know,
I feel that on a cellular level.
I loved it.
But like life isn't conducive to being an addict. Like if you want to be able to have relationships, if you want to be able to cope with your emotions, it's our emotional triggers are the things that pull us closer to addiction and pull us closer to relapses. And like working an active recovery program and, especially like what Hills and Ranges offers, their like I learned about their recovery program a little more in depth last week, and I was blown away by it actually. Like they have philosophies and a program that's set out in a way that like I would have loved, like I feel like I would have flourished with that sort of program. I did mine the 12-step way, and when the word God was in there, God, I wanted to vomit. I just could not cope. I was like, oh my God, the worst part about being a drug addict is having to become religious to get out of it, and I've obviously learned that like each to their own, and like, God of our understanding is a God of our understanding and nothing else. But when I learned about the program at Hills and Ranges, I was just like, wow, that is adaptive, and it is,
tailored.
It's tailored, and it's so inclusive. It's so inclusive. Like I just thought it was fantastic. I just wanted to say that. Yeah. Shout out Hills and Ranges.
What a psychologist or a psychiatrist can come up with whatever they want and put you in a clinical, clean environment like a hospital, and detox you and give you a little bit of information on how to deal with emotions constructively, the same way that they would do it for normal people. Like if you feel upset, go for a walk, think about something else, draw a picture. It's like you don't understand. And what the fact that it's been created by recovering, people in recovery for people in recovery, I think that's the only way to do it. And that's why I found success with the 12-step thing. And nothing else worked for me. I think that's why Hills and Ranges Private is successful, in my experience with watching the changes in the clients and things like that over the period of weeks or months that they're there. And I think any addict with a program is gonna succeed in a lot of ways compared to someone who's just had the drugs taken away, because nothing changes if nothing changes.
And that's why we have a difference between acute crisis care and like the rest of the time that you're there. Like you need a little bit more support when you're coming straight off the drugs compared to like when you've been sitting there for 30 days and actually doing some work and hearing your story, but from other people, and people who have recovered, essentially to a degree anyway. Like I don't think that we can ever completely recover. This is chronic. And it is lifelong, and it manifests in a multitude of ways. And it's just something that we have to work towards. And having an active recovery program to fall back on is just the way to keep that in check. It's the way to save your life. It's the way I've saved mine.
Yeah, and me too. And I think, look, to bring it back to the reading to finish up, the listening stuff, the stuff where we're like, shut up and listen in that reading, listen and don't just talk about you. I'm like, purple dragons. Yeah, that's definitely, I'm the purple dragon one. But I think the only listening you really need to do is just sit in there and listen to other people's experience and find out what worked for them. Because there's a lot of experience, there's a lot of people that have walked this path before us. And that's really, if you listen to anything, listen to that.
Absolutely.
Because the rest is all it'll happen in its own time. So, cool. All right, happy episode. Well done, Alexis. Thank you.
Well done, Oliver.
Thank you. Oh, it's great to be here. I'll be here every single day, and
Me
so
too
will
now.
you.
You're stuck with me.
Yeah, awesome. Suckers. www.rehab.melbourne is the website in which you can find more out about Hills and Ranges Private and speak to people if you need to at all. They're on the end of the phone there. And the number is 1800 422 711. Get in contact. We'd love to hear from you. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Cast. For more, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.